What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode. Before we get started with this video, if you guys wouldn't mind, hit that like button, hit that subscribe bar. Really appreciate it. Everybody who shares and checks out every video and likes and comments and engages in the conversation in every video, I really appreciate it. So with that, let's get into the video. And with this, as you guys saw with obviously the title and the thumbnail, I wanted to kind of go over at least my personal experience and my strategy of when I went to college and the debt that I accrued because of that, and really the lack of education, you know, in terms of how that was supposed to be handled, and really how many people deal with college debt, and really what my strategy was over the last few years since I graduated. I graduated with my bachelor's in 2015, and now in 2022 I'm completely college debt-free, completely debt-free in general. So I wanted this video to maybe give some insight into just my story, what my experience was when I went to college, and kind of why I got into that much debt, and then also how I used real estate. That's really the main point of this video, is how I used real estate and how I was able to leverage real estate into a project and into a flip that ended up paying off my loans in full, and really helped me really move forward in my financial future and not having any student loans to pay off. So with that, let's get into the video. So I'm sure a lot of you guys out there were kind of brought up in the same mind frame that I was back in the early 90s and 2000s, where college was really like nailed into my head when I was a kid. Like, you know, neither of my parents graduated from college. So when I was growing up, it was like, okay, if you want to be successful, if you want to make money, if you want to have a good career, etc., you got to go to college. And now, you know, in retrospect, after having gone through 4 years of university, having now paid off all of that student loan debt, I'm not really sure that I 100% agree with the whole concept, at least how we currently have it. So again, in this video, I just wanted to explain kind of my story with it, and then how I was able to use real estate to pay off over 30 grand of student loan debt from the time that I was in school. And really, over the last few years, college has just gotten more and more expensive. I'm checking out Forbes right now so I don't misquote this, but public schools are now $19,000, basically $10,000 to $19,000 a year, and the average for a private school is $38,000 a year. So institutions continue to raise the cost of an education, which then makes students that are trying to go to college to get that education have to borrow more money, therefore sinking themselves into further and further debt, and sometimes sinking their parents into further and further debt. So the cycle is really crazy. So guys, according to Forbes, the country right now, we have $1.75 trillion in student loan debt, which to me just seems like that's a ridiculous number. And the average owed is just under $29,000. So the average person that went to college and that has student loan debt owes about 30 grand, which is also a very high number, considering that a lot of millennials are trying to buy homes and do other things that kind of progress them, so to speak, in life. Student loan debt crushes a lot of people, and that's not including the people that, you know, are necessarily high earners with the doctors and the lawyers and stuff like that, but those are also people that carry huge student loan burdens as well. And according to Forbes, about half of all of the student loan debt is private and half of it is public. So it's really just a wild situation. So with that kind of being the norm, you know, focusing on going to school and going to college, what's the return on that, and what's the cost on that versus educating yourself in something different, versus maybe studying something that's more specific, like a technical skill, like being an electrician or something like that, that still pays a fantastic salary, but where you're not going to a 4-year institution and racking up a ton of debt. So my story, that's where I guess I'll start more with my story. I went to a school when I was growing up. Again, neither of my parents went to college, so growing up in Baltimore, they kind of gave me the ability to, they didn't know themselves, so I wasn't really taught what was best in terms of in-state, out-of-state, how much should I pay, whatever. It was just like, oh, you're gonna go to college, you know, let's sign up for a bunch of loans and let's figure out how to pay for it. So I ended up going to Drexel University in Philadelphia, which is a private school. It was just the spot that I felt had the best curriculum for me at the time, and the city and the environment, just everything kind of clicked for me deciding to go to Drexel, but it was a very expensive decision. And in retrospect, you know, I graduated in 2015, it's 2022 now. I actually graduated, it's the 13th. I graduated basically 7 years ago today, which is crazy that I'm making this video today. So I decided to go to Drexel, and Drexel's just an expensive school, and thankfully my parents were, I guess, encouraged and willing to split some of the cost of that debt. But I ended up with more than $30,000 in student loan debt from when I graduated because I had to pay for tuition. So I graduated with my Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Creative Writing, which I know a lot of people say, you know, what are you going to do with a psychology degree? You can't go out and get like a very high-paying job with just a bachelor's in psychology. You have to get a master's or a PhD or do research or some type of other more advanced studying to kind of make some more money in that field. But in my mind, I loved psychology. I studied business originally, and that actually didn't really spark my, I guess, mental curiosity back when I was in school. And I also didn't have the education when I was in high school going into college of really what my real options were. It was like, you have to go to college or else like shit's just gonna suck. So I went to college, and I don't regret the decision, but again, in retrospect, with knowing what I know about real estate and other things, I probably would have made a different choice when it comes to maybe where I went to school or potentially, you know, how much that education cost me. So even though I got my degree in psychology, I ended up starting a business anyway, and for the last, I've made a couple videos on my channel about that as well, but for the last 6 years, I have been a business owner in Colorado. I own a media company and a photography business, and I handle content and photography, and I do private photography work for various companies and handle content for brands and stuff like that, and I've been doing that for a long time. I used to write for a magazine as well. So really, my degree in psychology just helped me focus more on the human brain. There's reasons why I got my degree in psychology that I'll probably go into on different videos, just because I was so curious about how human functioning works and what the brain can do, and just personal things that have happened in my life with head injuries and concussions and stuff like that. So I was really interested in how the brain worked. And once I got my degree in psychology, I knew that I didn't really want to practice or go to school for a master's or PhD, but then I did apply those principles and things that I've learned when I got my degree in psychology to starting my business and to how I operate just in life. So in that respect, very valuable. I don't regret my decision to get an education like that or to have gone to college or to have a 4-year degree, but I do regret the method and the debt that I chose to acquire to get that education. And really now, let's break down how I used real estate, because I feel like that's a topic that not a lot of people like mixing together. It's like you either, from what I've heard from friends and stuff like that, you're either dealing with like a lot of student loan debt or you're trying to buy a house. You can't really handle, not a lot of people are talking about both at the same time. And obviously a lot of millennials, everybody wants to own their own home, part of that like classic American dream, and also real estate is just a huge way to level up in your life. So it's like, how do people manage currently dealing with an average of 30 grand of student loan debt, plus probably some credit card debt, plus probably some auto loan debt, and then still try to get a house? So it's a challenge for a lot of people, and in the rest of this video I want to try to just give some more really background in what I did and how I was able to use real estate to pay off, like I said, about 30 grand, a little more than 30 grand in student loan debt. So let's get into that with the rest of the video. So again, like we've talked about a couple times so far, you know, as I was taught, and also hit the comments, like I'm 29 right now, so I'm not sure how old you guys are that are tuning in, whether you guys are older, younger. Let me know in the comments, you know, what were you taught when you guys were growing up? Was it that, you know, college was really like the only way? Because again, my family, I didn't come from any family where people went to college before or had that experience, and I didn't watch people become successful in my household in terms of their careers or financially stable or financially free. So it was a really foreign concept to me, and when I had the opportunity to go to college, it was just like, okay, go. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Like, do you think if you went to college, do you think it was worth it? Do you think that the debt was worth it? What's your debt, if you have, if you feel comfortable mentioning that? Do you have a strategy for paying that off? But now let's really get into what I did to pay off that debt using real estate. So as mentioned previously in the video, I started a company in 2016, and thankfully I've been able to make a living, you know, with that business and with that company. So in 2019, I was prepared to make my first purchase or to start dabbling in real estate, and I found a townhouse that was in my budget, and I absolutely loved it, and I did what's called a house hack. And I'm a big fan, so a big shout out to Brandon, Bigger Pockets, and that whole channel, and everybody that puts in work on that channel. I've learned so much from them. But house hacking was something that I was really interested in. So I bought a townhouse that I could afford. It was actually, the mortgage payment was the same as I was paying to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. So the costs ended up being about the same. I just had to supply that down payment and have the income and the tax history and the other things that you do need to have to qualify for the loan. But otherwise, I got the property, and it needed a lot of work. And I've mentioned this in some previous videos. I've actually made a couple videos about the renovation, but I renovated that whole property. So I basically chose to take the risk. Even though I had student loan debt at the time, I was still able to qualify for the loan, and I basically knew that if I did the rehab correctly, I did the renovation and the flip correctly on the primary residence, that I should make enough money to be able to again pay off that student loan debt and to be able to use real estate kind of to leverage as a way to pay off that debt. So I finished that flip. I ended up selling that property for over $100,000 in profit, and was able to, that's another video on the channel if you guys want to check that out. It's how I made $100K in my first ever real estate deal. So that kind of just dives specifically into that deal and that real estate transaction and how I was able to make that happen. But with that money from the house sale, I was able to then pay off my student loan debt. So it's really, I think, just a creative way that maybe some people might not think about or might not want to take the risk, but if you do your research and you do your due diligence and you feel prepared, I think the opportunity of investing in a property, living in it, house hacking it, renovating it and kind of making those improvements, and then selling it for 2 years and then maybe making enough to potentially pay off all or a big portion of your debt is such a big bonus versus having student loan debt into your 30s or 40s or your entire life. You know, that the idea of holding on to that debt for so long to me was something that I did not want to do, so I wanted to figure out how to pay that off as quickly as possible, and that's basically how I used real estate to pay that off. So in 2 years of owning that house and in renovating it and selling it and flipping it, I was able to make enough profit to cover that, you know, to cover my degree, which I'm very, very grateful for and very, very happy about. So I hope someone out there found some value or get some good information in this video. Again, like the whole point of my entire channel is just to show off some cool art, to educate people about art, cars, real estate, really just the stuff that I'm really passionate about and the stuff in life that I love. So with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode. And again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe bar if you guys haven't already. Every like, every comment, every subscription to the channel really does make a difference. And with that, again, hit the comments with any questions, but until next time, peace.